Hi there, it's John Spark from Best European River Cruises, and I'm really excited today to have with me Corey Kirkman from Backroads of Europe. Corey is the sales manager for Western Australia, and he's got a product that I just feel will be absolutely a perfect match for anyone who's considering or doing a river cruise in Europe. And rather than have me describe it, I'm going to let Corey show you a presentation that he's put together, and you can work out for yourself how this could fit in with your holidays. But are you there, Corey?
I am.
Righto, mate. Well, I'll now let you take it away and show us why this is such a great compliment to river cruising.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, John. As John has indicated, I work for a travel company called Backroads Touring. And what I'd like to talk to you today about is traveling through Europe by land. And this is a fantastic add-on to river cruising in Europe. So what I'm wondering right now, though, is what kind of European travel experience that you're interested in. Because as you're probably aware, there are quite a few ways to see Europe by land. And what you might not be aware, though, is that your experience in Europe can greatly depend on which method of travel you choose. So I want to go through some of the options for you here, and I want you to think about what you're looking for out of a European travel experience, and that'll help you decide how you want to travel. So, first option, the traditional large coach tour. So this is a very popular method of traveling through Europe, and it has a lot of benefits. Now, clearly, this going on any sort of organized tour allows you to take advantage of somebody else doing all the work so that you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the destinations that you're going to. So large coach tours, include lots of things, such as obviously the transportation, your accommodations taken care of, quite a few of the meals are usually included. You'll get sightseeing tours in all the places you go, and you'll have a crew, typically a driver and a tour guide that are there and talking about the place you're going to. They're helping you, try and get the most out of your experience. Now, large coach tours are great, in particular for doing multiple country itineraries, where you want to really get a little taste of a lot of places in Europe in the time frame that you have. So those are the great things about it. It's very convenient in that regard. Some of the things, though, to consider about large coach touring that let's say are on the downside is that you don't have as much freedom on a large coach tour. So you're definitely operating on a schedule, following the itinerary of the tour. When you're doing multiple country trips, you can have some pretty long drive days as well, which can oftentimes mean some fairly early morning starts. And they're typically geared from a tourist perspective in that you're going between the major tourist sites. So you definitely feel like a tourist, particularly when you're in a large group. And we're talking, 35, 40 plus people, which, in some situations can be somewhat intrusive. So in a bit of regards, you may miss out on some of the local experiences that you may get with other forms of travel. But all in all, a great way, still to see Europe on a large coach tour. All right, next option. Of course, the classic Euro-Rail trip. Now, there's a couple of options when you're doing rail. There are, in fact, rail packages or rail tours, which in a lot of ways are very similar to, say, a large coach tour in that you get things organized for you like the accommodation, obviously the transportation, meals, etc. The difference with rail tours is that, first of all, your comfort on those drive days is probably a little better than on coach. You can get up and move around on the train, and there's various, sections of the train. You can go to the dining section, etc. So a little more comfortable that way. However, a trade-off, let's say, versus coach is that there's more transfers involved. So the trains are simply traveling between typically city center to city center, but your accommodation isn't right at the train station, of course. So you then need to transfer onto some sort of coach to head from the train station to the hotel or property that you're staying at. But that's maybe a minor inconvenience, or maybe something that you're not particularly interested in. The other option for rail, of course, is the rail pass, which allows you to pick and choose what you want to do. You choose your sectors, so you have much more freedom or independence when you purchase a Euro pass. Go where you want to go, plan your own schedule, what days you want to go, what time you want to depart at, so you can spend longer in a place if you really like it, spend a shorter amount of time. Lots more freedom when you purchase the rail pass. However, of course, then you have to do all the work of planning everything. You have to organize all your own accommodation, meals. You'll need to add on sightseeing tours if you do want to, once you get into the cities you're visiting, go out and see the sites around that city, etc. So much more work involved from your perspective, but you do have that freedom to plan it as you wish, to only go exactly where you want to go. All right, what do we have next? So next up we've got, of course, the self-drive holiday, and it's your choice whether you want to do it by car, or there's plenty of options for hiring a camper van or pulling a caravan behind the vehicle you've hired, whatever it may be. Of course, the greatest part about the self-drive holiday is absolute, essentially, freedom to do what you want to go. Do what you want to do, go where you want to go. Somewhat similar then to the rail pass. So then obviously on a self-drive holiday you can veer off the beaten path, go check out little places on a whim if you choose to. You see a road that looks like there might be something interesting, or you saw a sign off the highway, take the turn, go down there, discover what there is to be discovered, as opposed to with the rail pass, then clearly you're just passing by these little places and can't make that choice to turn off. So complete freedom essentially, but then the trade-off with the self-drive holiday being, of course, you've got again to do all the work like booking your accommodation, etc., but also the actual driving. So you're going to have to negotiate European traffic. You can see in the photo here, this is the Champs-Élysées in Paris, one of the busiest roads in Europe, particularly the traffic circle around Arc de Triomphe, which you see there. It's the busiest in Europe and one of the busiest in the world. Can be a bit of a nightmare. Plus, consider the fact that in continental Europe, at least, you have to drive on the other side of the road, you're sitting on the opposite side of the vehicle, etc. So maybe you don't want to have to do that kind of work. Maybe you want to sit back and relax. So those are three sort of main options that majority of people consider for the European holiday. What I want to get to next is maybe something that you haven't heard of or considered, and that is a small group tour. So one of the great benefits of a small group tour is that you get lots of a combination of the benefits of some of the other opportunities or options we've talked about already, without having to do a lot of the work yourself. So on small group tours, typically the type of vehicle like you see in the photo here, that can go anywhere a car can go. That means it can get you to places that you can't go on large coach tours and that you can't go on rail passes, whether it's taking you directly into the medieval city centers in European cities, which have narrow cobblestone winding streets. It can get you off the beaten path along say hedge-lined roads in the UK and Ireland. Great benefits in terms of where you can go on these small group tours. It also, because they're smaller groups than the large coach tours, means you don't spend as much time loading and unloading the vehicle when you only have, say maximum 20 or so people. You can spend longer in places. You have a little more flexibility with group sizes, because you can actually, on a small group tour, that your tour guide can ask the passengers if they'd like to spend longer in a place, if see something different. Whereas with bigger groups, if you've got 40 plus people, you're never going to reach consensus on doing something maybe slightly different than the regular itinerary. You just can't ask them. So small group tours, you have that convenience of going to unique places off the beaten path, etc., and a little more free time and flexibility on them. And you still get the convenience of everything organized for you, like the accommodation, meals, sightseeing, tour guide, etc. included. They're also less intrusive when you talk about visiting places. So with small groups, when you're going into maybe little villages, you're able to interact with them in a way where if you had a group of, say, 40 plus people, suddenly that group of tourists, let's say, in a 40 plus group dominates the area. So with smaller groups, you're less intrusive, which means you can interact with the locals, people you meet, restaurants you dine at, all that sort of those encounters or those experiences in a different way. It's a little more friendly, certainly more social and a more personal experience than doing big group tours, both within the tour and in the environments or the places that you're visiting. So you can definitely get to know everyone on a small group tour quite well, your fellow travelers. On a big coach tour, you may only be able to, they can be a little more cliquey, for example. You might only meet people. And if you're doing, say, a rail pass traveling on your own, you may not meet anybody because you may essentially just be traveling with them for just a brief period of time on one of your sectors. So certainly much more personal experience on a small group tour. Now, I'd also like to talk to you about regional touring as an option. So what is regional touring? Well, basically, regional touring is a way of visiting a country and spending your entire tour only visiting a small regional area of that country. So this is in stark contrast to a multiple country trip where you're perhaps, visiting over the course of a few weeks, 9 countries or something like that, and so you're only spending a limited amount of time in the major cities on a multiple country tour. Regional touring takes you more in depth into the country you're visiting. So you're really going to get a chance to see what life is like for the locals because you're visiting smaller places that are off the beaten path, that don't see a lot of the big coach tours that are doing mostly the multiple country itinerary. Some of the other benefits of regional touring, of course, that the drive days are shorter. So you're not going from a major city in one country to another major city in another country in one day. You're only driving short distances from whichever little small town or village you were in the previous night to another smaller town or village, or even to a major city, but it's still in the same country. So it's a shorter drive day. That also means you don't have to depart as early in the morning because you're not in any rush to travel a big distance. You definitely have much more free time because of the fact that you're not driving as far on any given day. And you certainly have more flexibility because you have more free time. Plus, you're going to get to all these little small off the beaten path destinations that the multiple country trips do not visit. So you're going to have a lovely chance to visit some places that your typical tourist doesn't get a chance to see. So really, what these regional tours can do is get you behind or go beyond the tourist facade. Whereas some of the multiple country trips and the bigger coach tours are certainly going to be more focused on getting you between the major tourist sites, and it often involves having to rush between those major tourists. So getting to go beyond the tourist facade will allow you to see the lesser known sites, lovely little places, and which really gives you more of a local interaction, whether it is shopping in the local markets or chatting with the people who live there. It really can see what life is like from the people who actually live in these places, as opposed to, hey, here's the amazing, of course, tourist sites, but it doesn't really give you a glimpse into what life is really like in those places. So, regional touring, great way to see more of a country and experience it from a certainly more local perspective. Plus, on these regional tours, you're going to have the opportunity to actually take the scenic route because you're not traveling as far on any given day. You're never in a rush to get anywhere, so you don't have to stick to the main motorways and the freeways. You can take the scenic route, the smaller roads. If you've ever been anywhere in the UK, they have these B and C roads, for example. Lovely scenery, rolling hills, mountains, etc. It really gives you, a glimpse of what life or what the scenery is like in these places, as opposed to the motorways which blast through, and oftentimes, the scenery is blocked off either because you're going too fast or because of the barricades and such built on the motorways to allow more safer traffic on those routes. So really the journey is just as important as the destination. There's lots of lovely little places to see, whether you stop there or not, as you travel between actual towns and cities that you're going to be overnighting on any tour that you do. So taking the scenic route, much more pleasant experience in terms of what you're getting between your overnight destinations. Plus, if you're doing this on a regional coach tour, you can actually stop along the way. If you see, a viewpoint, etc., and you want to stop for a photo, no worries to pull over. A train trip may take a scenic route, but you obviously can't call up to the conductor or engineer or whomever and ask them if they take a brief stop so you can jump out and get a photo. All right, fantastic. Now, as I mentioned, you're also going to have a chance with regional tours to interact more with locals. So, really get a chance to meet the everyday people. And a lot of times, because you're in these, not as popular destinations with the tourists, the locals are very happy when they do see people from, overseas, or certainly not from that town. They love to share what's unique about their place, what's different about their lifestyles. So you really get a chance to interact, not just with the clerk in the souvenir shop at a tourist attraction, but actually meet the colorful characters like we see in the photo here. So you're going to be able to go into small towns and villages where people, as a general rule, can be much friendlier than folks in the bigger tourist places, which is a lovely experience, and they can share stories with you about what life is like there, their childhood, etc. Because a lot of these European cities, the locals have spent their entire lives in these places. That's why they still live there. It's their home, and they haven't moved on to the big cities, etc. So they can certainly provide you with unique insight. Plus, you have a chance to shop in the local markets, etc. Like I say, not just hitting up the tourist sites. All right. So that's regional touring, some of the benefits of that type of experience. And what I want to get on to now is talking about the places that you will actually sleep at night. So the accommodation. So I'm wondering, or I'd like you to think about using local accommodation as an alternative to the big chain hotels and motels, internationally known, that of course we're all familiar with. So one of the great benefits about staying in local accommodation is that you're getting really a sightseeing experience with the accommodation. Okay, it's not just a place to sleep at night. The accommodation can actually be part of the historic value of the tour, or certainly adding more of a European flavor. So I'm talking about little charming character hotels, motels, traditional inns, manor homes, B&Bs, and guest houses that you have a chance to stay in, where it might be run by a family, a mom and pop type of shop. It could be a historic building. We're talking about Europe, where we have buildings that are older than European civilizations in the modern world. So you could be staying in a historic building. Certainly, they provide a lot more ambience than you would find in a big chain hotel. So, for example, if you look at a Hilton, pretty much anywhere in the world, there's basic design features that are common throughout all of them, whether it's the decor in the rooms, etc. So they're all tend to be very similar sort of feel. Of course, nothing wrong with those hotels, the big chain hotels. Booking them, of course, that you've got a certain standard. What you're getting. But of course, you research into finding these charming local places and find some absolute gems that you, of course, have never heard of, because it's not part of a chain. It's just a local place like the one we see in the photo here. And this is the Wild Boar Inn, which is located in the Lakes District of the UK. So it's a traditional inn, which of course means that it has a lovely pub and grill. And in fact, they've recently added on and built their own smokehouse in this facility. So lovely character property, certainly a lot different experience than you would get staying in, what if you were looking for maybe a similar standard, like a Best Western 4-star or 3-star or something like that. So certainly these sorts of places, something for you to consider if you want to add on to your travel experience with the actual accommodation that you stay at. Now I do have a couple other photos of some that you may want to consider. For example, here, this is the Rivercart Hotel in Kilkenny in Ireland. So lovely river views along the River Nore. Great little outdoor deck there with the restaurant as part of the hotel, so you can have drinks, a meal along the river, lovely views, and enjoying the town of Kilkenny. Other opportunities for you for accommodation. How about sleeping in a French chateau? Just some little ideas. There's many places that are different that you maybe haven't considered that you can get a really special European experience. So, lots of chateaus, castles, etc. now in Europe have converted themselves into proper accommodation that gives you a very unique experience. So, particularly in the Loire Valley of near Paris, just outside of Paris, you have quite a few chateaus. Some of them are just open as museums, etc. to visit, but a few of them, like this one, which is called the Chateau de Broye, which is near Cheverny in France, right in the heart of the Loire Valley, now, a hotel that you can actually stay in. So, very unique opportunity. And the final example I have for you of charming local accommodation. This is La Villa La Palagina, which is in the Tuscan Hills. Great ambiance. You can see just in the room itself, plus looking out the window. This villa is located in the Tuscan Hills, so you're surrounded by Chianti vineyards. So lovely, lovely views of the rolling hills of Tuscany. The facility itself has a swimming pool and a large terrace, so you can sit out in the terrace, enjoy the views, enjoy a nice glass of Chianti. So really adding to your European travel experience. So that's a look at accommodation as an alternatives to the standard chain hotel experience that again, there's nothing wrong with that experience, but something, if you want something a little different, you want a little something more, think about charming local accommodation. Now let's talk about food. Of course, food and drink, very important part of your cultural experience wherever you travel to. And what I really encourage you to do is, of course, to eat like a local. So, particularly in Europe, you've got all these different cultures where their diets, their traditional foods, their traditional drinks that they enjoy are all quite different. So going to Europe, you have a chance to experience really in their home countries all these foods that we of course have restaurants. We've got Italian restaurants and such here, Greek restaurants, all the different European restaurants, but experiencing it in that country is a fantastic way to really go more in depth into a country's culture. Plus, of course, you're getting all the specialties and stuff that you may not experience at said country's restaurant overseas. So you can really see an authentic version of some of these European meals. So certainly, a lot of people may have maybe a little afraid to try some local delicacies, but I really encourage you to try out the local food. And obviously, we're looking at breakfast here, and this is a full English, which is not all that unusual for us here in Australia. But certainly, you're going to get a chance to try out different things that you probably have never had an opportunity to try here. So really, you got to dive right into it. So try out the local foods, restaurants, etc., Of course, your accommodation providers can oftentimes provide meals, particularly if you're on a tour package, and hopefully you'll have the opportunity to get a choice of different things that may be more traditional for the area that you're in. So a choice is a big part of being able to more fully enjoy a dining experience. So I encourage you definitely to, when you have that opportunity, to go out on your own, if it's not part of an included meal, to go out and check out the local restaurants. Ask the people around you, the locals around you, for recommendations of restaurants where you can try out the various local dishes, etc., and really take advantage of the fact that you're in Europe and that you can, enjoy some fabulous food. That also means that you have the opportunity to eat at some very famous restaurants, because, of course, Europe being famous for a lot of its cuisines, there are many famous chefs who have restaurants that you can actually dine at. So here's an example. This is Rick Stein's The Seafood Restaurant, located in Padstow in the UK. So certainly, if you're a foodie or not, if you're going over to Europe and you're visiting various places and you really want to have a special dining experience, do the research. Look up, use your resources to look up which restaurants you may be able to visit that are famous because of the chef or whatnot, and take advantage of that when you're there. It'll really add to your travel experience. Plus, if you can, I highly encourage you to take a cooking course, take a cooking lesson. It's something that I've done myself in parts of the world, and it's fun and a great way to enjoy some great food that you've had a hand in making, and really get into, again, as a cultural experience, what the locals do. So there's plenty of places that you can find that will actually do little cooking lessons on the traditional meals of that area, and it's something, again, that can really add to your European travel experience. But of course, it's not just about the actual food. What about the local beverages? So in Europe, we have some of the greatest wine growing regions in the world. Of course, here in Australia, you've got some fantastic ones as well. But think of all the fantastic French and Italian wines. There's great wines in Spain. You've got in Scotland and Ireland, whiskeys. You've got beers, ales, ciders all over Europe. Plenty of specialties in the UK. You've got lots of areas, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Czech Republic, where you can taste some fantastic beers. You've got, of course, then local spirits, liqueurs, etc., whether it's limoncello or grappa. In Italy, have some margaritas or whatever it might be in various parts of the world. So, certainly your beverage opportunities in Europe are plentiful. So you definitely want to take advantage and taste the local drinks of the area that you're in. And not only that, but you can go and visit the wineries. You can go and visit the breweries. You can, do tours of the whiskey distilleries when you're in these countries, and really see where these drinks that you've tried at home are brewed, distilled, etc., and produced, and get the insider's view on where they come from. And then, of course, if you like it, buy a couple of bottles, bring them home. So definitely something else for you to take advantage of on your travel experience. So looking at what we've talked about, all those benefits, what I'd like to tell you is that you can experience all of these benefits on a Backroads tour. So at Backroads, we combine small group touring with regional touring, as well as using local accommodation and getting you the best of food and beverage on your European tour. So we are a small group escorted coach tour company, and we do trips in regional areas of the UK, Ireland, and very specific countries on continental Europe. Now, we've been around for more than 25 years, and Backroads is a great way for you to see Europe from a different perspective because of all the benefits that I've just talked about. So, to give you an example, on Backroads, our maximum group size is only 16 people. And in fact, we average only 10 people on a trip. So you have all those benefits of small groups that I've mentioned. Plus, we're called Backroads Touring for a reason. We literally travel the backroads. It's getting you off the beaten path. It means you're taking the scenic route. And it also means that you don't have those early morning starts. So in fact, we never depart before 8:30 a.m. And a typical drive day is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. free time and lots of flexibility. So with these off the beaten path itineraries and our small group size, that means you're getting more authentic local experiences on your trip. You're not just rushing from major tourist site to major tourist site. Plus, when you get to the destinations you're staying in, we use only charming character accommodation. So we do not use the big chain hotels. That means you can stay in places like we saw in the photos, like a French chateau or a traditional inn or a villa in the Tuscan hills, and really that becomes part of your tour experience. It's not just a place to sleep. Plus, we give you better food and beverage choices on tour. So you get breakfast every morning, and it's always going to be a traditional breakfast of the region. So the full English in England, an Irish breakfast with the blood pudding, or some people call it black pudding. Or if you're in Scotland, you're going to get the haggis included, something that I definitely encourage you to try. Just don't worry yourselves with what's in it, but it is actually quite tasty. And then if you're in continental Europe, you'll get a traditional continental breakfast with hearty breads, particularly in Germany, Austria, etc., with meats and cheeses, etc., that kind of idea. Now, we also include approximately half our dinners on our tours, which means that you're getting that inclusion up front, and it also means then you have the choice for the meals that are not included to go wherever you want. But with the dinners that are included, we actually give you a choice at dinner. We call it the I Select menu. That means that you're not just presented with the same thing that everybody else is getting. You will have a few choices there off the menu. And we do special culinary encounters like Rick Stein's restaurant included for our seafood lunch on one of our trips, or a cooking class in the Tuscan Hills. Not only that, but we'll buy the first drink at dinner for every included dinner, and we include quite a few winery tours and tastings, or whiskey tours and tastings up in Scotland and Ireland as part of the actual trip. So that gives you that chance to check out, those places where those beverages have come from. So here's a slide showing you the countries that we visit. Now, as I mentioned, we do regional tours only. So if we look at these destinations, we're not doing tours that take you to all of these places, all right? We'll have trips that in the UK just do the southeast or the southwest of the UK, or just Wales, or just Ireland, regional parts of France, Italy, and Spain. We've got specialty battlefield tours that do, World War I and World War II sites in northern France, Belgium, Germany, and Austria, as well as Anzac-specific departures and tours in Turkey. So we're very much a niche regional tour operator as opposed to a multiple country operator. So you're getting a chance to experience all those benefits of regional touring. So I want to run through with you a couple of itineraries now in various parts of Europe that we travel to. So here, what we're looking at here is our Corners of Cornwall itinerary. So you can see on the slide what we include as part of your trip. So the benefits, the convenience of doing a tour, you get these things already included. You don't have to do the work yourself to book all of these things and arrange all of them. So Corners of Cornwall, it's a 7-day trip and includes 6, of course, in our charming local accommodation. You get a driver guide companion. All right, you're in a Mercedes mini coach, and that's the maximum 16-seater. We saw it in the photo, one of the first photos I showed you. Full breakfast every morning. This being in England, it's a full English breakfast, plus 3 of the evening meals, all right, with the I Select menu, and of course 1 seafood lunch at Rick Stein's Seafood Restaurant in Padstow. So there's your famous restaurant included on this trip. Now, one of the other benefits of doing a Backroads trip in particular is that we include entrance fees to a lot of the sites you're going to be visiting up front already. So you can see the list there of places you'll be going to where entrance fees are already included. That means you don't have to shell out the extra money once you're on there. Paid up front, taken care of, you don't have to worry about it. Now the map's showing you where this trip goes. So clearly, out of London, we're not going over the course of the 7 days of this trip very far at all. So down into Cornwall, that means those shorter drive days, more flexibility, more freedom, and remember, on a Backroads trip, you're traveling the scenic route, you're taking those back roads, so we're not getting on the M1 and jetting out of London. All right, we're traveling through the countryside, enjoying. You've got Dartmoor National Park in there. You'll actually spend some time in the park overnighting in a lovely little charming place in the park, so you can enjoy the lovely scenery of the southwest of the UK on this trip. All right, that's our first example. Next trip, we're moving into continental Europe here, and this trip, our Vintage France trip, is brand new for this coming European summer, so summer 2012. This tour is all about the wine tasting. All right, so on the map you can see there's 4 red circles, and those indicate the wine growing regions where you will actually visit and will in fact do tasting tours of these facilities with local wine experts. So you're going to visit Chablis, Burgundy, and a couple of Champagne growing regions on this trip. So all based around the wine, which also means you're getting some fantastic evening meals. You're in France, you know, they've got great cuisine there, so you have a chance to check out some French delicacies, whether it's on an optional dinner off on your own or an included meal with that I Select menu. So lovely itinerary there. If you're into food and wine, this is definitely one that you want to check out. And as you can see, you know, multiple night stops, so you're not rushing every day to pack up in the morning, move on. All right, so you're getting 2 nights, 3 nights in a lot of the places. That means you can unpack your bags, relax, spend a little extra time enjoying the places that you're visiting. And that's all over the course of simply 9 days. All right, so it's not a whole heap of extra time. Being out of Paris, it's easy to add this on to a river cruise. If you're, you know, starting or finishing, say, in Amsterdam, you can easily get on the Eurostar to get to Paris to join this trip, and it only takes you an extra 9 days to do it. All right, final tour itinerary I want to show you is actually our longest trip. Now, it's only 14 days, and that's our Italian Indulgence. So this trip starts in Rome and heads north, finishing ultimately in Milan. And as you can see on the itinerary, going to, again, lots of smaller places, as well as getting into, you know, you're starting in Rome, so it's clearly a major destination, as is Venice in Italy. But you're getting into these little places like Assisi, Siena, etc., that are more off the beaten path for a typical tourist visiting Italy. Definitely so if they're doing a large coach, multiple country trip. Long list of entrance fees that you can see there. So again, better value already included up front, so you don't have to worry about, you know, you're in Rome, you're going to want to go into the Vatican Museum. In Florence, you've got the Duomo Cathedral, etc. This tour visits Cinque Terre. We include the ferries on that trip. You'll do some walking on this itinerary here. And I do want to mention that on a Backroads trip, they are a little more active than, let's say, the large coach tours in particular. So a little more walking. It's nothing, you know, you're not climbing mountains or anything like that, but you do need to be reasonably fit on a Backroads tour, in particular on this one, which includes Cinque Terre. So of course, getting breakfast every morning, half your dinners there, all your sightseeing, etc. So fantastic itinerary in Italy on our Italian Indulgence. Now, I did mention that we also do specialty battlefield tours. So I'll just want to quickly talk about what we do there. So we have 12 battlefield tours that we do, and they range in length from 1 day through to 12. These battlefield tours are visiting World War I and World War II sites in France, northern France that is, Belgium, particularly for World War I, and there's itineraries built around Anzacs on the Western Front, is just in addition to just general World War I trips. We also do Germany and Austria on our World War II battlefield trips, and we do Turkey as well for Anzac Day specific departures. One of the great benefits of a Backroads battlefield tour is that all of these tours are guided by guides that are certified with the Guild of Battlefield Guides. That means they are absolute experts in their field of knowledge. So it is incredible. I've had the pleasure of doing one of these myself, and I was blown away by our guide Tony on his level of knowledge. So they can really, they'll take you to, for example, a World War I battlefield, which of course is now just a farmer's field, and he can really, using his words, paint a picture of what the scene was like in 1914, using what you can see in the landscape, whether it's farmhouses and roads, etc., to describe where the various parties were lined up. And he had very specific details on the number of men, the number of casualties, etc. And we're not talking general numbers like 3,500. We're talking, he would be very specific, saying it would be 3,505 men, were injured, etc. Very, very detailed. So if you're into your military history, or if you have relatives, for example, that fought in these battles, it's a great opportunity to go and see where they were involved. And in fact, you can go and find the memorial or their headstone in the war cemeteries and memorials spread out through Europe, and will in fact help you find them. So specifically, before you go, we can direct you to a website where you can put in as many details as you have, determine where your loved one is memorialized or buried, and then bring that information with you. And as long as it's obviously not way far away from where our standard itinerary goes to, we can actually take you to those sites. So what we're looking at in this photo here, this is the memorial and cemetery at Fromelles in France. That's where approximately 5,500 Australians, and again, our guides would have the exact number for you, that number were killed or injured in World War I in a 27-hour battle. So, the numbers are outstanding. I don't mean outstanding and that's a good thing. I mean, it's just, it baffles the mind, the number of casualties in World War I, particularly on the Western Front. So, you have a chance to visit these sites, and their particular interest to Australians. Plus, we've got New Zealand memorials that we visit, the British memorials, the Canadian memorials, etc. So we do cater these trips to everybody on the coach, and in fact, our guides will evaluate every day who's on the trip and make sure that in addition to the included sites as part of the standard itinerary, that if there's in particular more, say, Australians on the trip, they'll also go to additional Australian memorial sites. So pretty incredible to experience yourself. It's a very moving experience. It's not always happy sights to see, but it's important for us to remember. And so if this is something that interests you, I certainly recommend that you experience one of these trips. As I mentioned, you can do them as short as 1 day up to 12 days. So again, if you're doing a river cruise, it's really easy, a few days before or after your river cruise, and add on one of these battlefield trips. All right, another one of our specialties, garden tours. So if you're into your flowers and gardens, we can take you on a couple of tours that are really going to show you some of the lovely, lovely gardens of the UK. Now, our actual itineraries are based around flower shows. So we do trips or tours from 4 to 11 days, and we have 3 separate garden tours. that are based around A, the Hampton Court Flower Show, and B, the Chelsea Flower Show. So on these itineraries, you will actually visit the flower shows themselves, of course, with entry included, etc. Plus, you'll tour out to the lovely gardens in the southern English countryside. So you'll be out in places like Kent and Hampshire areas, where you'll spend, on the longer trips, multiple nights out in these areas and visiting the various gardens. So if you're into that sort of experience, this is a great option for you as well. Now, most of our itineraries operate in the summer. That's our biggest touring season. And July and August certainly are most popular time of the year to travel, but we do have summer, as we call them, summer itineraries that do travel earlier or later in the season. However, a time of year for you to consider traveling is, of course, the European winter. So if you want to escape to winter wonderland, you will experience Europe in a completely different manner than you would traveling in the summer. Clearly, you're going to have to rug up, particularly in the north. Lots of snow, as you can see in the photo here. But it's a magical place in the winter. You'll get to experience things then that you wouldn't experience in the summer, like, for example, Christmas markets. If you're there November, December, every European town, essentially, will have markets in the center of town with these, you can see it in the photo there, various little booths and stalls where you can buy handicraft, enjoy local food, beverages, drink some mulled wine. So you get those, and can only get those experiences in the winter. You're going to have a chance to see snow, which, obviously not all that common here in Australia. And prices of our tours in particular, but just traveling to Europe in general, is much, much, much cheaper in the winter. So it's a good way, if you want to save a few dollars, go in winter. A lot of our winter itineraries are just a winter version of a similar summer itinerary, but at a much reduced price. And you'll often find, unless you're traveling at Christmas or New Year's, that airfares are cheaper to Europe in the winter too. So something to consider. Certainly a different perspective on Europe in the winter, and you'll also avoid the crowds. So while in July and August everybody is in the major tourist sites, at least in Europe, in the winter the sites are not crowded at all. You don't have to queue up to get into museums and sites whatsoever, and it's certainly a different experience for you. Okay. Now, if you're looking for a private tour, we can, in fact, do tailor-made trips for small groups. So, being that our group size is maximum of 16, we cannot take more than 16 people on a private tour, but we can do for as few as one person, in fact. If you do want to do your own, very able to do that. Basically, the way it works is, come to John, come to your travel agent, and ask about a private small group tour with Backroads. You tell us what you'd like to see and do, and we'll put it together and give you a quote. So because we specialize in niche parts of Europe, we're typically going to do our tailor-mades, our private tours in those general regions. So you didn't see in the list of countries you visit Poland or anything like that. So we wouldn't be doing charters or tailor-made trips to Poland because we don't have, the infrastructure with accommodation providers, etc. But if they're in the countries that we do visit, we can put together a completely customized itinerary for your private group. Or, in fact, you could take one of our scheduled departure trips, the exact same itinerary, and just have it run only for your group. So something to consider if you want a more personal, private touring experience. Now, I do also want to mention there's always ways to save. So there are discounts available to you on a Backroads trip for booking things like more than one trip at a time. And in fact, a lot of our itineraries, particularly those in the UK, are designed to run back-to-back, so the dates do line up. If you look at our itineraries in more depth, you'll see a lot of them are quite short in the UK, 4, 5, 6-day itineraries. So you could do, a regional trip to the southwest of England, and then in and out of London, and then you know, a 4 or 5 day trip up into Wales, for example, and the dates would line up, complete one after the other. So discounts available for booking more than one trip, or if you've traveled with us before, of course, you can get a past passenger discount. So everybody loves to save money. Always ask about those possibilities when you're looking at booking any sort of trip or tour, you know, not just, of course, Backroads. All right, that about wraps it up. All I wanted to say finally is, if this sounds like something for you, the Backroads experience and all the benefits that I've talked about with our small groups, with our local experiences, whether it's visiting the small towns and villages, off the beaten path on the back roads, whether you're interested in not having to get up at 6 in the morning to get on a tour that's traveling great distances, or you want to stay in some of these lovely, charming local accommodations while enjoying some fantastic food and beverage. If that sounds fantastic to you, please contact your holiday destination specialist at Jet Set Albany, and that's Nilla, Kelly, or Talia. You can contact them on 1-800-130-635, and you can request a consultation with them to basically further discuss your travel plans. And that's whether, you know, the Backroads experience is for you, or if you just want to talk to them about all of the other ways that you can travel through Europe. So that's it from me. I'll now send you back to John.
Thanks, Corey. Fantastic stuff. And as you can see now, anyone who's gone through this whole thing here, it really does put a different perspective on the conventional way of looking at how to experience Europe. One way that I want to highlight that's becoming really popular, not just to Europe, but with anywhere now, is family holidays, where they actually do charter buses or coaches or guides just for their own family group. Often it's grandparents taking away their children with their grandchildren, and it's just a really fantastic way for families to start to connect at a deeper level through a neutral type experience. It might be taking them back to experience their homeland or their grandparents' homeland, like a lot of our heritage is from the UK here, and even Italy now. And so those types of holidays with Backroads Touring Co. Can be 100% customised to whatever degree you like, and it allows you to have a holiday where what people keep telling us is that they can just enjoy it and experience it and not have to worry about that. There's always somebody to answer their question or take care of the things that can become quite stressful on a holiday. Really, that's what a holiday's about. It's about enjoying and not having so much stress. So brilliant stuff, Corey, and I encourage anybody who either wants to tie this in with a river cruise, and it's a magnificent complement to a river cruise, or even just wants to experience in its own right, maybe even visiting family or friends and you just need to have a little bit of a break, or you want to fill it in with a business trip, for instance, then call one of our holiday design specialists. As we've got here, the contact details will come up on the screen in a second. Talia, Kelly, or Nilla, they will love to help you create this holiday of a lifetime. So again, Corey, thanks very much, and I really hope that everybody's got as much enjoyment out of it as what I have, and that we can put it into place for you. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
All right.